Well, good day, everybody. September 12th, Friday. It's 12:45 in the afternoon. I got a lot of information to put out, so I guess I better start out right away. Really, some incredible stuff. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of other people are going to be talking about this, but at least parts of this. But maybe I'm hoping I can give you an analysis that's maybe a little bit different and more accurate than what a lot of other people will be giving to you. Okay. And in case you missed it because of all of this excitement going on with this assassination of Charlie Kirk, yesterday was the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, as they say, or whatever the heck happened on 9/11/2001. And yeah, well, a lot of it was overshadowed, obviously, because of what happened on is this a battery? Anyway, whatever happened on the day before, on September 10th, with Charlie Kirk. In perspective, one of the things you got to look at is that that's kind of obviously a watershed date, September 11th, but it's kind of the beginning of a different era. I guess, what do you say? That's what watershed dates normally are all about. Hey, look at the bench is free again. But it's actually started kicking something off, you know. And you see George Bush, who was president at that time, he started like, it's almost like he wanted to take revenge on the entire world. But maybe that feeling of revenge actually had existed long before that. And depending on what you believe, maybe they were just using that to kick it off and justify all of the nasty things, mostly perpetrated by the United States, well, practically all of it perpetrated by the United States after September 11th, 2001, invading Iraq and Afghanistan and who knows what. And if you are familiar with the Project for a New American Century, the chapter called Rebuilding America's Defenses, you know, most of that was penned by Paul Wolfowitz, and it is about trying, well, I think it's first recognizing within that think tank, it was a think tank called Project for a New American Century, and I think what it was trying to say is, you know, well, we need to get a hold of the world's oil resources. And there's also been theories, and I think that was mentioned by Pepe Escobar, if you guys know that great journalist, called Pipelineistan. And normally it's entirely the world's resources. I'll have something to say about that too. Not just oil and gas, but you know, the United States believing if they want to remain the hegemon, the one ring that in the darkness binds them, they have to get a hold of the world's resources. And you know, Paul Wolfowitz was actually one of the first ones. You know, there was it Daniel Pearl, I think his name was, and some of these other, Victoria Nuland, I think Pearl is Victoria Nuland's husband. But you know, they have to dominate, you know, the whole world and all that. But anyway, 3,000 people, essentially just a few people less than 3,000 died on September 11th. And Americans, obviously, I think all of them. I don't know how many, might have been a few foreigners in there. Strangely enough, all the Israelis were told not to go to work that day that were involved there. That's pretty much been put out back in those days. And if you think about it, 10 times that amount of people, you know, 3,000 if that died on that. And of course everybody was mourning. The whole world was basically crying. And it's not a nice thing. It's not a good thing. And even when one person, for example, Charlie Kirk dies, or this Ukrainian woman the day before or whatever, when she dies or something like that, it's especially, you know, brutal murders of people that are essentially innocent. I don't know. It's not a nice thing. And then there are people, as I mentioned, and a lot of people are talking about it, Lots of people in the United States are celebrating the fact that Charlie Kirk was murdered, was assassinated. Wow. That is really sick, if you ask me. But I mean, I've mentioned that a lot of people are mentioning that. I don't know what the heck is. I was going to say a different word. Hell, what the hell is going on in America? This is stuff. But put it in perspective: 10 times that amount of people die every month in the special military operation, and huge amounts of people are dying in the Middle East at the hands of Israel. All of them virtually innocent people. I think maybe 1 out of every 50 or 100 might actually be Hamas or Hezbollah or even Houthi. I don't know. A lot of people are maybe Houthi. What is a Houthi? You know, these are people that don't like to see innocent people dying of bombs and slaughter and starvation. I call them moralistic people, the Houthi. So very poor people. Anyway, not too much to say about it. I can see if I get off on different tangents anyway. And then you also have to consider the fact, you know, you see these 3 buildings that were taken down on September 11, 2001. And Israel, I think it was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? They destroyed vastly more concrete and steel girders and all in Gaza than far more, I don't know, maybe 50 times more they destroyed in one day in Gaza, just within the last couple days. It's absolutely incredible. People's homes, government buildings, any kind of buildings, hospitals, schools. They've already destroyed all the schools and the hospitals. They bombed all those out a long time ago. And these people in Gaza, Doctors Without Borders, Americans, British, whatever you, even Israeli doctors, they can't even put up makeshift hospitals fast enough whereby Israel is bombing and destroying them again. So they can't put up hospitals fast enough, and then they get destroyed by Israel. No, but they are really loving people. They're letting they're giving them lots of food. You hear it right out of their own mouths. They said they're trying to give them the minimum, the absolute base minimum of calories a day just to barely stay alive. They've said that. They've come right out and said that. You know, and guess what? Most of them don't even get that bare minimum. And that's the honest to God truth. So, and the children, there are no schools anymore. They don't go to school. There is no education for these children. And then you can watch these videos, and people are now starting to notice this stuff. And you compare that to like Belarus. You know, you're looking at a grass area right now, and if I turn around here, you see, I don't know, young boys over there. You know, a soccer area to play soccer. There's children playground over there. They don't have that in Gaza. That's all been bombed and destroyed. There was just a video I just saw yesterday where they took some Gaza children, it was from a distance, and they tried to make a teeter-totter, something for them to do. They don't have grass fields. They have piles of rubble. That's their playground, is piles of rubble. What about the dust that they breathe in, of all of the millions and millions or billions of tons of dust that Israel creates? It's going into the lungs, not only of the children, but going into everybody. You got to consider that sort of stuff. And this stuff all started to a large extent and accelerating and accelerating since the late 1940s, when Israel really started escalating and taking over everything there. You know, based on, of course, the Balfour Declaration and all the things that happened back there, the Sykes-Picot Agreement originally, and it's all back from 1917, when Great Britain sold land to the Zionists, you know, which are people that are kicking the Palestinians out. Basically, they're all Zionists there now. Then you have Zionist Christians, you know, and it's like a real contradiction. It's a contradiction. A Zionist Christian, You know, the entire term does not even make any sense, but it does exist. You know, a Christian is somebody that normally is supposed to believe in Jesus, and yet the Zionists hate Jesus. So it's like, is there such, there shouldn't really even be a word called a Zionist Christian. But anyway, I don't know. It's kind of like, you think, is there something that you missed? Are you somehow stupid? Am I somehow stupid by seeing these things, you know, in studying in history and saying, well, what the heck is a Zionist Christian? And, you know, I even talked, sitting on the same bench, was it yesterday? I can't even keep track anymore, you know, doing work on my home. And a little Bidenish up here, you know, that, I don't know, all of these contradictions of Christianity with, you know, like your Judeo-Christian heritage, you know, and what is Judeo-Christian? It's kind of, and you even hear Benjamin Netanyahu saying something about Jesus when he probably really hates Jesus. They're brought up, a lot of these people, to hate Jesus. They call him the ultimate betrayer. It's like they you know, but you know, Jesus was probably not the person that they thought it was. Somebody to smite and kill their enemies, to, you know, to make the so-called Jews or whatever to be the top hegemon, at least in the region, you know, after that, to kill all their enemies, Amalek and the Philistines and all that sort of crap, you know. I mean, all of this stuff, it's just, none of this stuff really makes any sense. But anyway, I don't even want to get into that. I got way too much to put out here. Yes, but anyway, it's pretty clear that this attack on these people in Gaza is probably the biggest humanitarian crime in human history. I don't know. Possibly, because a lot of that stuff that they talk about, the Holocaust, a lot of that is just simply not true. Jews have even admitted that that is not true. Wow. But anyway, I don't want to get into that either. That's another can of worms. It's terrible when you kind of know so much and you want to start to inform people, and I don't know. I'd have to really sit there and write things out and prepare some sort of a documentary. And of course, I'm not really that qualified to do. I'm not good enough. I'll just admit it. I'm not good enough to be doing that. Probably get myself in tangents on that time too. But anyhow, those watching my channel know that it's been proven that Israel is linked to 9/11. So many people put out all these links, you know, the dancing Israelis and the white van and all of this stuff that was spotted on that day, and people were talking about it, and then that they let these other, I think the ones they took from the white van, I think they let them go, and they got back to Israel, and they're on Israeli television saying that their purpose there was to record that. Some Chinese people, I think it's some Chinese girls over there doing something. I don't know, you probably can't see it. Very cute. Anyway, but it was their purpose to go over there and to film the event, to film the attack on the Twin Towers. I think those are the ones that were up on the rooftop, and a lady reported that, and that's on video if they didn't destroy it. And she said that she saw these 3 Middle Eastern men on the rooftop and setting up a camera, and then when the airplanes struck the Twin Towers, they were celebrating and giving each other high fives. Huh, that's very strange. And I think one of them was a demolitions expert, and who knows, whatever, you know, I don't know. This stuff is all documented and it's all on video, but you know, lest we forget this stuff. But let's go on, let's keep going here. Yeah, remember we were trying to tie, I mean, I'm talking about collectively the Americans, trying to tie Saudi Arabia to the attack on the Twin Towers. And a lot of times they had these photos of people, the suspects or the ones that supposedly did this, and a lot of them were proven to have nothing to do with that. They have never even been to the United States, some of them, and it was very strange. It's just like that Charlie Hebdo thing, remember? And unfortunately, you know, and it really sounds like I must hate the Jews, but that was the thing with the Rothschild family and the Charlie Hebdo a magazine thing, and some of these people, they said that, I think it was some killings. I can't even remember the entire thing about this. This was in France, I believe it was in Strasbourg, if the rest of you remember. I remember in Germany, Ich bin Charlie, or I am Charlie, you know, Hebdo. And these people were, in a sense, some extremely, I'm not talking about the ones that did the bombing, because, you know, who did the bombing? And but anyway, the ones that were running this magazine, and they had very terrible things, and these what is it called, cartoon drawings of Jesus, really disgusting stuff about Jesus, and yet we are supposed to all feel sympathy for them. And I don't know if anybody got killed or anything like that, but anyway, except, you know, not feel sympathy for the ones they accused of doing whatever the crime it was. I can't even remember, when it turns out that those people were not even guilty in the first place. I don't know. Look at all this crap that goes on, you know, and it's just like the JFK thing. And you know, like I said, oh gosh, this guy, I must hate the Jews. I must be anti-Semite, which doesn't mean anything. The most anti-Semitic people on earth are the Israelis, because a lot of them are not even Semitic people. They come from Europe, and the Semitic people, oh, that's the Palestinians. But they hate the Palestinians. They want to either kill them or get rid of them, but they're not anti-Semitic. But anyway, JFK, you know, all that stuff that was going on then. Oh, Israel's involved in that too. Well, surprise. I don't know. It's like, how do you do these videos? Yeah. But anyway, first we blamed Saudi Arabia, and then it was Iraq. Iraq did it, you know? And I think, is that why George Bush went into Iraq? Or maybe, I think one of the reasons is because I think they insulted his daddy. I think that's what he said. I don't really know. And then, of course, they were trying to tie Iran, that Iran was also involved in 9/11. I tell you what. And the only governments that they know for sure, somehow, and I don't even know to what extent, were linked to 9/11 was Israel and the United States together. You know, very strange. But there's my cat over there, the kitty that's always, you know, when I came sitting here. I'd like to walk over there, but he looks like he might be chasing something. Anyway, let's keep going. So much stuff to put out. Yeah. All of these cans of worms everywhere now, with Israel all involved in most all of them. Wow. So now that brings us to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And you know, I was reading, and the strange thing is, I saw this governor of Utah, and he gave this speech, and I believe it was yesterday, and it was to the press, and it was very good, you know, very good. The information, and it was very balanced. His opinion seemed to be very decent and all that. And then maybe it was yesterday. Let's see, what is it? Or the day before? Was it last night? Last night, I guess, the same day, but later on. You know, that makes sense because he was wearing the same shirt. He looked like a policeman. But anyway, he's like smearing Russia and China. He's not saying that they are involved in the assassination. You know, at least they haven't got that far yet. Russia did it. You know, I'm sure Trump is, yeah, he's going to believe that one, you know, after the Russia hoax. But anyhow, this guy was saying that I think that Russia is and China are. Anyway, I'll get to that. I wrote it. Let's see. So, let's see. But as I was saying yesterday, that Charlie Kirk has zero to do with implementing any policy decisions, any policy actions, anything like that. And he's not a billionaire. It's not like he's putting money into anything. He's an influential person. Turned out he was. He's only 31 years old, by the way. But I'll tell you what, I saw something just before coming out here to make this video, and maybe I'm gonna have to not really take back, but actually find like I'm finding a little bit of a key to about Charlie Kirk, you know, and his life. And what I was trying to find, I couldn't understand that this guy, he seems to be pretty right on about COVID, this COVID stuff, and I think the vaccines, I believe, as well. I really didn't follow him, but now that this thing is becoming really politicized and what do you call it, polarizing, I should look more into this guy. And it's like, why did some of these people, why do they have such tremendous hatred of this guy? And I think maybe it has to do with the trans stuff. And I was thinking, oh, it's because maybe these people are pro-Palestine and Charlie Kirk is pro-Israel. But I'll tell you what, I'll tell you something. He is not, he says he's pro-Israel. It's absolutely incredible. But his actions showed something a little bit different, and I'll get to that. But anyway, he had nothing to do with that. And also, Ben Shapiro, he has nothing to do with it either. So it's like Ben Shapiro is nothing but a friggin' con artist. He's just a con artist. He loves Israel, and Israel could never, ever do anything wrong. Everything they do is exactly right. You know, Ben Shapiro, you know, I think Candace Owens used to work for some network from him, because Ben Shapiro is a very, very rich guy, unlike Charlie Kirk, who was a rich guy. Obviously, he became rich. But Ben Shapiro was probably always super rich. He's a very rich guy. I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's got many, many millions, tens of millions of dollars. And I think, you know, Candace Owens was working somehow for his network to a large extent. And you know, she knows about Ben Shapiro. I guess maybe you can talk a little bit more with her about that. Anyway, he doctors the facts. And let me say, for once, I took the time to write this out just so you understand Ben Shapiro a lot more. He said the other day, I was watching something, and he's talking about that supporting Israel is a tremendous bargain for the United States. It's very much like Lindsey Graham coming out and saying, oh, it's a great deal sending billions of dollars to Ukraine because they're killing Russians. You know, so I guess that's somehow a great deal to kill other people, to kill Russians. And Ben Shapiro didn't say, oh, it's a great deal because they're killing Palestinians, you know. But in a sense, he actually did. But he didn't. He did it in a little bit of a roundabout way. But he said it's a great bargain. He said because the U.S. sends $3 billion to Israel. No, they send guaranteed $4 billion for at least over the last 20 years. A guaranteed $4 billion. And I thought Ben Shapiro was supposed to be this really intelligent guy, and he knows fully well how much the United States sends to Israel, and it isn't just $4 billion. That's the guaranteed amount that Israel is told they will definitely, positively get, no questions asked, every single year. But it's always been vastly more than $4 billion dollars, you know. So right there, he's doctoring the facts, you know. But he was using this and saying, oh, then the U.S. spends, and I guess around now it might even be $900 billion for their defense budget. And he said, oh, it's very small compared to which it is, to the U.S. defense budget. So it is a tremendous bargain, you know. And it's like, well, you know what? Well, you know, it's American taxpayer money. So why are people complaining when Joe Biden was sending $325 to $375 million every 3 months to Ukraine? That's even a bigger drop in the bucket. Oh, that's just water, a drop of water in a bucket, considering, you know. This is all a bunch of, anyway. So, but anyway, it's $4 billion every year guaranteed for most of my life that I've been watching politics. Let's see. The average amount, it seems, is double that every single year. It's like $8 billion. $8 billion. It seems to be like an average. I mean, no, it's a double what he said, double three. It's an average maybe for the past 20 years of $6 billion. $6 billion to Israel. That's kind of like an average. But lately it's been far more, because what was it, last year? They sent over 10 billion. I think it was closer to 11 billion. Maybe it was over 11 billion. They sent to Israel free of charge, free of charge. You know, it's incredible. Donald Trump never talks about that. He talked about Joe Biden in, I don't know how many, what years is that? Wait, let's see, what is it, 2000 and, when did he start sending every quarter $350 million to Ukraine? I don't know. How much does that add up to be? But anyway, Israel gets a lot of money. Israel has I mean, Ukraine is a small population now. A lot of people have left, but Israel had far less, and it's a smaller country. You know, I think it's the size of New Jersey. I don't know. But I guess it's over 11 billion in 2024. And what is that money used for? I guess that's kind of a big question too. So it's a big bargain. And they say something about national defense of the U.S. Well, how is that? How is that? So do they stop them? Do they shoot the ships that are jumping in the ocean, finding their way, swimming their way to the United States to bomb the U.S.? No. I don't know. Are they talking about protecting? They're not even protecting American bases that are scattered all throughout the Middle East. It's the United States doing it to their own bases. As a matter of fact, the United States is protecting Israel. So how it's not I mean, think about this. You know, and of course Israel has good intelligence, but of course you rile up these people, you get them to hate you get them to hate the United States, and then Israel supposedly provides the intelligence to the United States of future attacks and things, when they wouldn't be attacking in the first place if the United States wasn't egging them on. And a lot of the time that stuff is all fake anyway, just like George Galloway's thing when they said George Galloway was working with Saddam Hussein. I've talked about that already not too long ago, and it was all faked. It was forgeries and everything else. George Galloway, maybe he should revisit that and talk about how Israel faked documents and faked intelligence, you know, to try to basically, at least politically, get rid of George Galloway. George Galloway, what an amazing man. That's all I have to say. If you all saw that trial when he went before the Senate, that's before he was wearing his hat and his glasses, and he was in there and he disproved everything. And these people, the United States government was groveling because they couldn't prove anything. And George Galloway, he didn't even have a friggin' lawyer. I don't know, he's probably a lawyer himself, but he really made them look sick. And I think you can still find that on YouTube. It's really worth your while for entertainment. So yes, but anyway, the money they send to Israel, actually, it is very clearly, it undermines the security and national defense of the United States. And then of course some of the money comes back anyway, and it comes back and it buys these politicians, you know, and it gives them a so-called free trip to Israel. But that money, that free trip, is coming out of the taxpayers' pockets of the United States. This is this is incredible stuff here, you know. And it goes, you know, like through AIPAC and all that. Well, that's not the same kitty. That's a kind of a dirty orange kitty. Let me see if I can show it to you. I don't know if you guys can see it walking, or if you can see it. You're looking on a big screen TV. Anyway, like cats. Cats are elegant, graceful, beautiful creatures. I like cats. Okay, but anyway. So, I don't know, makes you wonder where Ben Shapiro gets a lot of his money. You know, do you think he's paid also by the AIPAC? American Israeli Political Action Committee? And let me tell you, let's get into some information, some stuff you guys probably didn't know. Maybe you've seen it somewhere if you're a news hounds and you're all over the place, kind of like me. I'm not real bad, but I'm bad, you know, wasting a lot of time doing this stuff. But Charlie Kirk was invited to Israel to go there at the end of this month. Very strange. I think by Benjamin Netanyahu, at least through Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's the one that actually said this. I saw this on video. kind of shocking. The shocking information is, and this is even brewing, this was brewing beforehand, and I don't even know since when this started brewing, but Charlie Kirk was apparently starting to lose his supportive attitude towards Israel. He was losing his support for Israel. And I don't exactly know, but he was on a show and he's talking about, well, all these children dying and things like that. So he's a family man. He's got kids himself. And he said he's pro-Israel, but he might be apparently pro-Project Israel, but he's not pro-Israeli government or their actions or the Nazism. But I'll tell you what, Zionism is a form of Nazism. It's like, kick those people out, we're going to take that land, God gave it to us. But anyway, he was starting to lose his support for Israel, especially I think within the last few weeks. And apparently he might have turned down his visit to Israel. And it looks like it's kind of, what is it, a Stockholm syndrome or whatever? Maybe he was getting sort of conditioned by these people that he was debating. And most of the time, Charlie Kirk was not even talking about Israel, was talking about wokeism and other things like that. And I'm finding now that he's a very fascinating guy, because the last thing that I saw before coming out here to do this video, and I'll get to that, but he's not a dummy. He's 31 years old. It's kind of amazing. And I'm starting to think, why did this... I was thinking that there were some reasons why people could hate him, not to kill him, but to hate him. And I'm starting to think now that's not really true, because he was not anti-Palestinian. He was not pro-Zionist Nazism, Zion Nazi. So it makes you wonder if some entity wanted to eliminate him before he went completely over to the dark side. Duke, I am your father, Duke. Oh, no, that was me. But they didn't want to see him go to the so-called dark side. Meaning, anyway. But that does not, I don't know, you're not quite understanding who would have possibly wanted to knock him off. And it looks like there are different causes, maybe some that misunderstood him and some that really did understand him. And it seems like those that maybe really did understand him, and you have to think about it for yourself on who that might be. They're the ones maybe that really wanted to knock him off before he was not any longer supportive of their side. That's very possible, and I guess others have been raising that as well. And I think I took notes on that too. Yeah, I did. I'll get to that too. This isn't too long of a thing. I'm only on page 4. A few weeks before Charlie Kirk's assassination, he said, "I am told by some people that if I criticize AIPAC, that I'm anti-Semitic." In other words, he didn't believe in that. But maybe it's the Israelis that told him that, because that's exactly what they say. If you are not for Project Israel, meaning what they're doing today to Palestinians, and anti-Hamas, then you are an anti-Semite. When it's very strange when these are European-type people killing Semitic people. So that's just a misuse of terms. In other words, they should be saying, you're anti-Jew. And it doesn't mean that they're anti-Jew. They're anti-repressive government that wants to kill off a different people and steal their land from them, and calls them inferior, and they themselves call themselves God's chosen people. I tell you what's the difference between the master race and we are chosen by God? I don't know. Or the exceptional people, as Obama said. I like to keep talking about this stuff all the time. These are, to me, it sounds fascist. I mean, well, that's not really fascist. It sounds it sounds Nazi-ish. Fascism is a completely different thing. And I don't really want to keep misusing the word. Maybe that's the modern definition of the word fascism, but it wasn't the definition before. Fascism is an economic system, and it's of course was nationalistic anyway, but it had nothing to do with any race or your skin color or your religion or anything like that, or your gender. It had only to do with some sort of a nationalistic economic viewpoint. But let's keep going. Okay. So if you do not approve of Israel killing hundreds of thousands, which the real number is into the hundreds of thousands, but Duke, they only said it's like 63,000 people that are dead. Well, that's because they've only found 63,000 bodies, and there's hundreds of thousands of bodies that they have never found yet, and they know for a fact that there's large numbers of them buried in the rubble, and they haven't even gotten around to removing 25% of the rubble in Gaza yet. And even when they find these bodies, I don't know. They're not going to add it to the tally necessarily. I don't know. This is a terrible thing. They're never going to get a full accounting on how many people they killed. But everybody says at a bare minimum, it's at least 300,000 people have perished in Gaza alone. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Some have it up beyond 400,000 because there's so many people missing, and they have no idea where they're at. And these are the hundreds of thousands, and I guess maybe that's up to 400,000. Maybe that's where they get that number of 400,000. Of innocent people, by the way. Oh. Yes, indeed. Let's see. I don't know. To me, I wonder, well, what is it? What is it when you support ethnic cleansing? That is at the very least ethnic cleansing. Unfortunately, like I always say, there's a lot of good things about Donald Trump, but some of these nasty things that he, I don't know, I guess he's a Zionist Christian, if there's ever such a thing. Which doesn't really make any sense, but anyway, he's definitely for ethnic cleansing so that he can get, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, in there to make the Riviera of the Middle East and build luxury apartments and hotels for the super rich. Oh, and the Palestinians they're sure some of them they will let stay there, in some tents by the septic tanks, by where the sewer systems are at, the sewer treatment plant, and let them live in tents there while they go to work in the hotels and changing the bed sheets of the rich people. And I was in the Caribbean. There was a lot of tourism down there, and they even had, believe it or not, and this might be kind of shocking to you, they had people, the local people, some of them there. I don't know. I believe they were local, because the locals were doing that for jobs as well, like cooking and talk to a lot of them and all this. And there was one, like somebody brought their old granny there with them, and she was for the most part bedridden. And I guess the younger couple, they left. Sometimes then they would go to on excursions and whatnot, and the locals had to wipe the backside of the granny when she, in the mornings and stuff like that. So that's part of your job, I guess, is being a, I don't know what they call it, ambulante or whatever, wiping the backside of grandmothers, anyhow. Some job I don't really ever want to do. Netanyahu has already been making the circuit, going around and, Charlie Kirk, we loved him, and all that sort of thing. But I tell you what, on Fox News, he said what caused Kirk's assassination is the union, look at this BS, this guy's a used car salesman, is the union of ultra progressives with radical Muslims. So, it makes me wonder where I fit in on this. I really dislike, he's one of the most disliked people on planet Earth to me, is, if not the most, is Benjamin Netanyahu. And sure, I have a lot of sympathy for the Palestinians and even for the Houthis, and the Gazans. I'm not a big fan of this, what is it, radical, no, what is it called, the ultra progressives, though, and maybe some of them do overlap, but Benjamin Netanyahu, he's kind of reaching for some straws there and trying to create some enemies. And it's, the strange thing is, the governor of Utah, he's coming out and accusing China and Russia of doing exactly what I just told you that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing. So, and the governor of Utah probably is a Mormon, but I don't really understand, and I don't really know for sure what Mormons' views are towards the Israelis or Jews in general or whatever, but I can kind of get a inkling of it right now by accusing the Russians and the Chinese of doing exactly what the Zionist Nazis are doing. I think they're, this guy was saying that, and I wrote it in here too. I think I'll get to that. I'll just repeat it a second time. But anyway, like that the Russians and Chinese are exploiting this online to incite hatred and anger and violence. I think it was, anyway, I'll get to that. But I just now told you that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing exactly that. Okay. But he's blameless, of course. The guy that kills hundreds of thousands, he's blameless. He's a nice guy. He's out to help us all. I tell you what a Satan Yahoo. That's definitely a good name for this guy. Okay. Let's see. I wrote here, like, the media mollycoddles, because this was a CNN reporter. They mollycoddle Satan Yahoo. Like, oh, I know this doesn't sound, I guess maybe, did I write it down? They shout down, they yell and they shout down anybody that maybe is supportive of Palestinians. And the police, are to crack down. They beat these people, even old, I tell you what, even blind people and old people that can't walk, you see them dragging them off, like, and putting them in cells and things like that. Whatever. Yeah, and they're called anti-Semitic terrorists. So if you are in favor of trying to protect these Semitic people called Gazans, then you're an anti-Semite. So, wow. Remember that song? I mentioned that yesterday, and you guys should listen to that and listen to the words on that. The song is actually very good, and the words are very, very, very informative, and it's very, very true. And I tell you what, it's like prophetic, and I, maybe it was true then as well. But it's this song by Green Day, and it's called American Idiot. One nation controlled by the media, and subliminal mind. What I used the title yesterday, America, subliminal mind, F-U-C-K, America, and there's a lot more phrases in that thing. You got to listen to that song. Like I said, it's a good video too, where they have a bunch of green goo coming. Of course the guy's wearing makeup and stuff, but anyway, it's just too much. You have to watch that. Look that up on YouTube after you watch this video, of course. Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention before I forget, I just kind of put it as a side note here, is it's really strange. They are showing us, and they even have this picture now, this photo of where supposedly the assassin was nestled on top of this rock, and it looks like, on top of this building, and they have like a gravel on the roof, and you can see where the gravel is kind of messed up a little bit, where this guy apparently was kneeling. I didn't look to see if they showed how he got there, because his feet would displace some of the gravel too, a little bit, maybe, as he was walking to this area. And it's a very, very long shot. I think it was over 200 meters. And the strange thing is If you saw this gruesome video, which is very terrible, of Charlie Kirk when he got shot. Anyway, where this guy is supposedly sitting, he's facing directly the stage. So he has got face to face over a long distance with Charlie Kirk. I think these Chinese girls want to come and sit on this. They keep looking over here on this bench. Anyway, and then you saw this video, and he was shot from the side of the neck, and he did not go like this. And if you have ever even pointed a telephoto lens, or you know, even taking a long shot, I think, what did I don't even remember how, I think it was, it looks to me like it was more than 200 meters. It looked like it was like but to hit exactly there, that is not an easy shot. And you know, the farther the distance is, of course, the harder it is. And you know, if you move your weapon like one tiny little millimeter, like up where you're aiming, one tiny millimeter, that will put you 5 feet off. So it is very difficult, like being a sharpshooter and stuff. I've known snipers and I've known torturers. I mean, I met them. Well, I didn't know I knew a sniper. Let's see. Yeah. I've known snipers, and I met torturers, and you know, people like that. And I've, you know, a lot of other people that did some pretty strange things in the military. But anyway, sniper is, you know, I'm not so great at all at a rifle. Matter of fact, I can tell you I'm almost terrible. I'm pretty good on a shotgun. And then I've told you guys before on other videos that when I did qualifications, you know, you do qualifications, you know, with the rifle, you do it with your unit, you know, with a whole bunch of soldiers. Everybody has to shoot the M16 and all that. And then you know, some of us get lucky enough, depending on what our jobs are, which I sort of was lucky enough, so I got to qualify in lots of other weapons, you know, some foreign weapons like from Belgium, and I almost got the German ones. I wanted to do the German ones because you get some stuff you can wear in your uniform. But anyway, I did other, you know, like Beretta and 45 and all that sort of thing. And but there's some of these other people, you know, like the ones that are in charge of the security of the President of the United States, and of which I've, you know, I met, not Secret Service, but those that are also involved in protecting the President of the United States, and congressmen and senators and all kinds of people, generals, you know, and you know, but those people, I'll tell you what, they are so good, they are so accurate with a handgun, and it's like, to me, it's like, how in the heck, you know, they practice a lot, but you know, I didn't hardly practice at all. My shot group was pretty, I don't know, maybe it was a size bigger than a baseball, you know, bigger than a baseball from a distance, maybe bigger than a softball. It's a long time ago, I can't remember. This is what I'm talking about, like 1986. But these guys, they get a shot group, you know. I don't even remember how many shots maybe you fired. Maybe it was 6 or something, like with Beretta, I think at that time, you know, Magnum or something like that. And you shoot like 6 shots, and they can get their shot group the size of a quarter, all of them within that distance. Like mine was like a big softball maybe, and of course they shot really fast, and I think I was only halfway through my bullets when they were already finished. So these guys, you want to be very careful, stay away from these guys. And you know, there's the Chinese girls closer up. So anyway, oh, there's a lady there. It's actually a neighbor of mine with her dog. She's come by here before too. Anyway, I don't want to show you, you're my neighbor. Kind of take a risk, you know, about this. And Charlie Kirk, another thing, we're talking on Charlie Kirk. He even talked about him taking a risk, you know, that against violence because of what he does. And even me reporting this stuff, you know, talking about Ukraine and all that sort of thing, calling it as I see it. How many reporters, I'm not a reporter, but bloggers and people that were not even reporters, people that were actually had other jobs, and how many of them has Ukraine knocked off? Lots of them. Israel has killed far, far more. I think it was like nearly 300, but those are all reporters for the most part. Israel has killed 300 reporters whenever they set foot over there near Palestine and everything. Anyway, I'm getting off on this stuff too much. I got to keep going here. What is that? Already 50 minutes, so I'm only halfway done. Okay, one nation controlled by the media. And like I said about the brainwashed idiots, you know, that's celebrating. Wow. It seems one of the biggest goals of the media seems like it's to foment hatred, you know? And it's like, you know, they love any kind of news, even hatred news, because they make a lot of money from that. So it's like selling weapons or something like that. But it seems like they want to foment hate, you know, and mostly against Russians or any, you know, Iranians, Chinese maybe now. Chinese is getting to be that way. And they promote you to love Israel and to love Ukraine, to hate Russia, you know, maybe now to hate China. I think they're still working on China. I don't know why they haven't really gone so. I think they're saying like Chinese this and Chinese that. They're getting there. They've got a lot of hatred against Chinese now. But you know, you see these like this Chinese girls or something, you know, their nice smiles and things like that. Kind of difficult to hate a lot of Chinese. I never really see Chinese going around and going off, you know, and like you see these people in Black Friday or in the buses, you know, stabbing people, you know, and fighting in big groups. You don't see that very often. Very, very, very rare. They're more of maybe they're a little bit more civilized than a lot of the rest of us. But anyway, a big goal is to expand the Hate Russia Club. Marjorie Taylor Greene would probably agree that the world is encouraged to send taxpayer dollars to Ukraine. Obviously, she agrees with that. She knows that. As a matter of fact, she's trying to put up a bill that sends that they got to sign that you don't send any more money to these countries, like to send your taxpayer dollars to Ukraine and Israel. And strange that these, you know, I call these governments, their ideology is Nazism. You know, why would the United States send so much money to these two countries? But anyway, makes you wonder. Then you have Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, he's trying to get Russia designated as a state sponsor of terrorism. And he was in the news too, what was it, yesterday, I guess. And he was saying like, oh, because of these children that Russia rescued out of orphanages. They rescued them from orphanages out of the war zone. You know, these people basically had no parents and things like that. They were orphans. And Russia has reunited the vast majority of these children with relatives and parents in a lot of cases, you know. And yet Ukraine, it's a documented fact that they have split the parents up from their children. They left the parents in areas they thought would be war zones, and they took the children like towards Kiev. And very strange that a lot of these children, they've turned up in Germany. Oh, but yet they're not war criminals. They're not state sponsors of terrorism, you know. But nevertheless, Putin is, and Putin is reuniting a lot of these children. And a lot of the time, some of these children that are in Russia are living with their parents. Oh, that's strange. And I think even Lukashenko has helped. So I think they probably put Lukashenko also in that same category. I don't know. I don't think they've said. Maybe, yeah, probably Lukashenko. They want to make him a terrorist or something like that. But by the way, Lindsey Graham is designated as a terrorist in Russia. And that is absolutely fitting. I don't know, he's maybe my second most disliked person behind Benjamin Netanyahu. I tell you, I would definitely not cry if Benjamin Netanyahu were shot like Charlie Kirk was. I would not celebrate, but I wouldn't cry. And Lindsey Graham, you know, he's a nasty, evil guy too. He's probably responsible for probably over 100,000 people getting killed. But anyway, so let's go to some other news. Poland is claiming Russia sent drones and violated Polish airspace. And that was seconded and thirded by Kaja Kallas and Volodymyr Zelensky. What is their evidence? They have none. No witnesses, no evidence, but they were friggin' Russian, you know? And it's just like, remember, and that was not even talked about just more than a week ago. The former president of Poland was talking about how Zelensky was trying to get Poland to go to war with Russia. And one of the ways they did that was to send a missile into Poland and blame it on Russia until they found out it was a Ukrainian missile. And then here we go, 1 week after that was in the news, here they come up with this thing about the drones, and Russian drones don't have that kind of a range from the war zone. I guess the Russian zones have a drones, their maximum drone has a range up to, what is it, 750 kilometers? Well, that's over 2,000 kilometers. So I don't know how they stretched out over 2,000 kilometers from a 700 kilometer zone drone. That's pretty amazing. Wow, American drones can go way over 2,000 kilometers. I'm not saying that it was American drones, but it certainly wasn't Russian drones. It just can't be. And Russia is saying that. You remember, I had something wrong to a certain extent when I was saying that they had invisible North Korean soldiers, and that nobody ever saw these soldiers, but yet Ukraine was saying there are North Korean soldiers fighting in Ukraine and blah blah blah. Well, as a matter of fact, they were not fighting in Ukraine. They were in Russia, but they were in the war zone. So I was partly off on that one. They were in Kursk. They were defending and trying to help kick out the Ukrainians out of Kursk when they had that huge offensive and took over a big portion of Kursk, the Ukrainians. And the North Koreans, I think there was like maybe, I can't even remember for sure. There might have been 1,000 or 2,000 North Koreans. But in this case, and Russia never said there weren't any. That was just me, because and other people were, because nobody had ever seen any of these North Koreans, and they weren't in Ukraine. Anyway. But in this case, Russia said, no, they were not our drones. Whatever drones you're talking about, they were not Russian drones. So in this case, they weren't Russian drones. Russia has been pretty much 99% honest and truthful about everything that's been going on so far. So anyways, more stuff. Okay, let's see. But of course, Zelensky saying, don't believe Russian propaganda. It was Russia that did it. I'll bet you it's going to turn out that Ukraine did it, but we can't find out now because there are no witnesses and there is no evidence. And by the way, nobody bombed anyone. He said, it was Russia trying to see what combat readiness Poland had, ahead of time. Ahead of time for what? Are they going to invade? Is Russia going to be invading Poland? There's not been anything mentioned, any reason why Russia would do that. Anyway, even though right now they have a exercise going on, it's Belarus and Russia, and that's in Belarus. That's not by the Polish border and Ukraine. This is up further north, and I think it's called Zapad 2025, which Zapad means west. And it's just an exercise, and of course that is a little bit, it's kind of like they had to probably wait, until the exercise that NATO was running for several months, also on that same border, except on the other side, against Belarus for the most part, and Russia, from Estonia all the way down, even through Ukraine. It was huge, and it went for many months. The one for Russia and Belarus is only a short period of time. So Russia was not testing Polish combat readiness. Maybe it was Zelensky. Maybe he's going to do another one of these things. Zelensky's probably getting pretty desperate. Yeah. So Poland is also, partly because of this, is sending an extra 30,000 soldiers to the border region. I don't even know how big the military is anymore of Poland. I remember it used to be 60,000, and I know it's definitely way over 70,000. I think it's close to 100,000 right now. Germany, I guess, is only at 72,000. I wrote it down here. I'll get to that in a little bit here. Anyway, so Macron is also reacting to that. He's sending 3 Rafale fighter jets. And he said, "We will not yield to growing intimidation from Russia." Yeah. So anyway, okay, here's the thing about the Utah governor. He said, like I said, he did a good speech before that, but anyway, he was saying that later on, I guess it was last night, he said that Russia and Chinese bots are trying to use the incident to instill disinformation, and that they want violence, that Russia wants and China want violence. And he never showed any evidence either. And obviously it looks like maybe Benjamin Netanyahu is, and he'd have to kind of show how Russia and China are doing this, or are they using mind control of these Americans to get out there and laugh and celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk and all that? Or maybe it was this guy that stabbed this Ukrainian woman in North Carolina, when he said they put some material in his body, that's not him. Like obviously he knows, and there's a video that's him stabbing that woman twice in the neck. And what he meant was, oh, that is not my personality. I don't do that sort of thing. They put material in my body. It's like a computer chip, and maybe that's what this guy is saying, that all these Americans that are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death have Russian computer chips in them or something. I don't think Russia has those computer chips, by the way. Boy. And I was talking about, like, CNN interviewed Netanyahu, and they started out by saying, oh, this is ridiculous to say that Israel could possibly have anything to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, I'm sorry, Mr. Netanyahu, to ask that, because we know that it sounds so very ridiculous. And then, of course, what do they have? They have old Satan Yahoo, of course, going along with, yes, that's ridiculous. Yeah, some are saying Israel, is changing the orbit of the moon. Yeah, and that Jews were drinking the blood of Christian children in the Middle Ages. Oh yeah, oh gosh, obviously that stuff sounds ridiculous. But consider the past history of Israel. Consider the past history. So you did not send some agents dressed in like tennis outfits with tennis rackets into a hotel just to get into that hotel. I mean, just so that you wouldn't look suspicious. You went inside and you assassinated somebody there. I think that was in Dubai. That was quite a few years ago. But that's ridiculous. And enabled them to kill somebody there that way. Or, but that was an enemy of Israel's. Oh, okay. Well, what about the USS Liberty? When it's a very well-known fact, and I don't know, all the survivors, and you were trying to sink that boat. Anybody, look up the USS Liberty. Their great ally, the United States. Israel was trying to sink it. And if you read about the entire thing, Israeli airplanes were flying by, and it was in 1967, and these people were sunbathing out on the deck, the Americans with sunglasses, and then waving to the Israelis. The Israelis waved back when they flew by in airplanes and all that sort of thing. And then after a while, the planes came back, the same Israeli airplanes, and their markings were painted over, and then they started bombing the USS Liberty and machine gunning the place. And these people were trying to get away, and they killed all the people in the life raft and machine gunned it. As a matter of fact, they even have this life raft in an Israeli museum, and they display it on the wall with pride that they machine gunned and killed all of these Americans on the USS Liberty, and they're so proud of that. And the whole idea, that's a whole big affair, and the United States was literally minutes away from dropping a nuclear bomb on Cairo, because it was a big setup, and the Israelis were killing Americans. They were killing Americans earlier even that year. The Lavon affair, they were, some of these things were intercepted before it could happen, so I'm not exactly sure which ones. They're trying to bomb a movie theater with Americans in it to kill Americans and make it look like the Egyptians did it. And then I think it was a bomb in a post office as well, and killing Americans and things like that. Oh, but no, America's our friends. That's absolutely ridiculous. We wouldn't do anything like that. Charlie Kirk was our friend. We wouldn't do that. But guess again. Charlie Kirk, he was having a change of opinion. Not only that, and Charlie Kirk said some extremely damaging things to Israel, talking about October 7th. And you can find it on video. Patrick Bet David. I started watching Patrick Bet David a long time. I don't watch him anymore, unfortunately. But he's a good, because I don't have the time to be watching all these things. But I was enthralled by him, just like I was enthralled by Jackson Hinkle a long time ago, when Jackson Hinkle was still living with his parents and making videos from his parents' bedroom. And he didn't even have enough views to go live stream at that time. And then there's Patrick Bet David. I think it was the same thing. I don't know if he still is selling insurance. He has an insurance company or whatever. And he was writing things on with a grease pencil, you know, and he made like outlines and things like that. It was much different than what he does now. But yeah, I was fascinated by him. Very good, you know, guy. I know a lot about him, and I'm going to talk about it like he's originally from, I'll talk about it. Originally from Iran. He's not from Iran. His family is from Iran. I don't know if he was born in America, probably. I can't remember that. He was in the United States Army as well. But anyway, so Lavon affair and all that sort of thing. And you all notice that Israel, killing comes so easy. Killing, assassinations and killings comes very, very, very easy to Israel. They kill as easy as we drink a glass of water, and they have nothing against it, because they believe, unfortunately, and I'm sad to say this, is that one of their fingernails is worth more than 10 of our lives, of the goy. They call us the goy, unfortunately. This is really terrible stuff, and a lot of stuff nobody talks about. So whenever you hear this stuff, this sympathetic stuff, and talk about, you know, even Netanyahu, he even mentioned the word Jesus. He probably washed his mouth out with soap afterwards, because he was so pissed off and was spitting afterwards, because he hates Jesus for sure. But he mentioned Jesus and you know, on American television or something like that just yesterday, I believe, because he's pulling out all the stops, and he's going full bore used car salesman, fool the stupid Americans, or fool the goy. Anyway, you guys know this stuff. So anyway, Germany, I was telling you, and I said, how many do they have? They have only 62,000. So their military is probably around the size of the Belarusian military, as is right now. Belarus has a much smaller population. So Germany doesn't have really huge amounts of soldiers. That's incredible. I didn't know that. A very small military. And here they really do, and it's a very well-known fact. You just listen to the rhetoric. They really do. If you just have a couple brain cells working, you know they want to go to war with Russia. And they say they're trying to get to go to war by the year 2029, just as is a lot of these other countries, such as Sweden and Norway and all this. They want to get the war going by 2029. And I was putting something out a couple of days ago as if they're trying to get it out early, but it's like, I think they're trying to get the hospitals to a state of readiness and get the body bags ready. You know, like in England, they're saying, you know, they need to get mobile morgues up and everything. So I guess they think that they're getting ready for a war. These people, they don't have any friggin' money. They've wasted their money. They're a bunch of idiots anyway. The whole friggin' governments over there are a bunch of idiots. I don't know. There's just way too much evidence of that. So I don't even know. I'll tell you what, I'll even get to something. I'll get to something at the very end of this video that'll shock you as well, of how stupid. Somebody that's really stupid as well, and you didn't even know that they were that stupid, of something that they said. It's not like this history lesson where Kaya Kallis, what was she saying about, I don't know, that was some really weird crap she said a couple of days ago, and everybody is talking about how stupid she is, doesn't know anything about World War II or something. But there's even I'll get to the other one by the end of this video. Anyhow, let's keep going. U.S. is pressuring Mexico to put 50% duty on Chinese cars. In turn, China is warning Mexico not to do that, but the United States, I tell you, the United States, I don't understand that they're really, I'll tell you, there's even more information, economic stuff, trying to punish people. I'll get to that as well. About Israel, China and Russia. So, what else happened in the news? Israel bombed Doha, Qatar, trying to get a Hamas political leader while peace talks are going on there. Wow. Supposedly, they say, Donald, if you listen to the U.S., they informed the U.S. just before the missiles or bombs or whatever had already been launched by the time they informed the United States that they were going to bomb Qatar. Another new country now. I don't know how many countries Israel is bombing in the Middle East at the moment, but Donald Trump, I don't know what was he saying? Anyway, there's a different story in the United States as there is with Israel, and it turns out, I think it was Israel saying that Israel said they coordinated these attacks with the United States, and the U.S. is trying to. I think somebody said that Donald Trump is trying to wash his hands and trying to act as if they knew nothing about it. I'm not saying that Donald Trump knew something about it, but it was coordinated with somebody, CIA, who knows what, in the United States. What was that? A car or something like that. So, yeah, Israel said attack was coordinated with the United States. So somebody's lying, don't I? You know. Qatar is not very happy, of course. And the United States promised Qatar it will never happen again. But if Israel acted alone, and the United States, how can the United States promise that Israel will never do it again? You know, unless the United States has some control over Israel. But they might have actually some control. But I'll tell you what, it's more like, I'm gonna make sure she wouldn't go grab my bench. It's my bench. This woman over there. But I'll tell you what, I kind of think as far as a lot of Israel might have more control over the United States than the other way around. Okay, what else is going on? So this is more strange news. Don't blink. We're watching Charlie Kirk and the Gaza bombing. Israel's really bombing Gaza. They're trying to destroy virtually all buildings in their family homes. Anything that's maybe over 3 floors, I think they're bombing. And they hit like 300 targets, I guess they said the other day, and they're going to increase that amount. They're going to escalate it, if that's even possible. The bombs, compliments of the American taxpayer. Yes. Okay. But anyway, don't forget about Venezuela. There's a U.S. general, 4-star general, Laura Richardson. She came out. She was in video. She's a 101st Airborne. She looked like she was maybe 45 or something like that. She doesn't look like she would be jumping out of airplanes. I don't have any idea. But anyway, 4-star general woman. But anyway, none of my business. But she said basically that the United States has to secure the natural resources of South America. Obviously, it sounds a little bit like it's something like the Monroe Doctrine. Somebody wrote to me something about the Monroe Doctrine. You know, there's some sort of a deal, you know, and possibility, depending on what the attitudes of the people are, that could possibly work. But of course, the United States has never obeyed the Monroe Doctrine. You know, it's supposed to be something like the United States stays in its own hemisphere and everybody else stays in their own hemispheres. But what is the United States? They're in Ukraine. They're in Israel. They're in Taiwan. They're in Japan. They're in Africa. They're everywhere. The United States is virtually everywhere. So forget the Monroe Doctrine. Maybe that's just for the other guys to follow, not the United States. The rules are for thee and not for me. So anyway, Laura Richardson, She said the United States has to secure all these resources. She said, what is it called? The lithium triangle or something. That Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile have 60% of the world's lithium. And the largest oil reserves were discovered last year. I was even mentioning this. I said this when I was working for Dave, with Dave on From the Other Side. I wasn't working for him because he never paid a penny. But I was on that program, and I was mentioning this Guyana, and that's one reason. And I guess I'm kind of on the side of Guyana because it's Venezuela. I guess I don't even know. Did they take over part of Guyana? It was like there was going to be a war between Guyana, which has virtually no military at all, and Venezuela, who doesn't have a very strong military, and and they wanted to take a huge portion, almost half of Guyana. And Guyana has, timber, Purple Heart, and wild jungles and big snakes and things like that. But I don't know exactly how that actually worked out there. But Restorana? What kind of a Restorana? Oh, da.
Серебряная ложка.
Там, Pizza Mania.
А нет, это здесь.
Здесь нет. О, да. Links and yeah, там. Зеленый здание, да. Okay, let's see. Let's see. What else am I at here? We need to step up. Oh yeah. So 60% of the world's lithium and the largest oil reserves. I don't know. I'll tell you what. There's huge amounts of oil in the Americas. Huge amounts of oil underneath Port-au-Prince in Haiti. It's probably the biggest oil reserves in America, and except for maybe now this one right off Guyana that was discovered, I guess, last year. Wow. And then Russia has quite a bit, and whatever, blah blah blah. So what else did she say? But of course, huge resources of Venezuela. And I remember, I think after they discovered this oil in Guyana, that I think the economic growth of Guyana is like the strongest in the world. It's like 43%. When you have economic growth of 5%, you're doing pretty good, but they're like 43%. Incredible. And Venezuela, oil, gold, copper, 31% of the world's fresh water is in that region, she said. And she said, we need to step up our game. And of course, she also said that the big enemy of the region, of the United States in the region, is Russia. Who else? I thought China was the one that was working with a lot of those. Anyway, but it's and the ones that Russia are friends with are not any of these countries that she mentioned, by the way. Well, maybe Venezuela, but Nicaragua, she didn't mention that. And there was Cuba was another one. She didn't mention that. But I don't think Russia has any military bases at all in South America. So what's she afraid of? And the United States does have military bases all over there. So I don't know, why are they going to have to fight Russia down there when Russia is not down there? Anyway, I guess it's some booga scare tactics. We need to go attack Russia because maybe they'll think about ever going down there. I don't know. Oh look, you can see a guy pissing over there. Can you see it? Anyway, so let's see. U.S. military drills. Wait. Oh, that was another thing I was going to talk about. The United States, like the Monroe Doctrine and stuff. The United States even doing military drills with Armenia. NATO exercises in the United States. I mean, think about that. Okay, the government in Nepal has been overthrown. Some politicians have escaped. The Prime Minister's wife was burned alive in her home of Nepal. And a lot of people are saying this is a U.S. government now, pro-U.S. We're more pro-U.S. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know much about Nepal, practically nothing at all. I thought they might have been friends with China, but maybe not now. I don't know. Many say it's a classic CIA government overthrow. Okay, that's what I was going to say about Trump. He's telling the European Union to put, what is it, 100% tariffs. 100% tariffs on India and China in order to pressure it. I thought it was 50. It was 100. Was it 100? Did I write it down wrong? Anyway, big tariffs on Russia and China to pressure them to squeeze Russia. Wait, India and China to pressure them to squeeze Russia. To squeeze them for what? He's doing like a 3 birds with 1 stone. Just so happens that they're BRICS countries, all 3 of them. And there's even talk about Brazil, them going into Brazil, some kind of a huge thing about they're going to go after Brazil big time, the United States, because this Bolsonaro, who's a friend of Trump apparently, he liked Trump at least, and of course Bolsonaro, he liked Russia, and Russia liked Bolsonaro and stuff. Russia's not getting involved in that, so I don't know. It's just that apparently there is a huge amount of evidence that he was trying to overthrow the government after he lost the election to Lula. So the United States is heavily meddling in the affairs of Brazil, and whatever evidence, they don't give a crap about the evidence, you know. The United States never cares about evidence. They just care about what they want, what is their mission, what they want to get accomplished. Wow. So anyway, and by the way, that what I just told you, that was by Reuters. Reuters is the one that put that out to squeeze Russia, you know. Okay, massive protests across France was yesterday, the 10th of September. It seems, I think it was George Galloway talking about that Starmer and Macron, they have like, their approval ratings are in the teens. Everybody was talking about how bad like George Bush was, or whenever it's in the like 30-some% from certain leaders. But these guys are in the teens. It's like 11%, I think, I don't know, it was 11% for Macron and 13% for Starmer, or reversed. One of that, I guess they have the lowest approval ratings of any leaders in the history of those countries. And Macron refuses to step down. And I guess, what is it? How many prime ministers has he had many prime ministers in the last time? And apparently now he's either got to call elections, which means step down, obviously, or else he's got to appoint apparently a prime minister from the opposition, from Marine Le Pen, or from either the communists or the far right. Wow. Anyhow. And the usual stuff, Israel keeps bombing all these countries, Yemen and Lebanon and all this. And then, as you saw now, it's maybe going to be starting with Qatar. And guess what? A lot of this information that I was talking about Charlie Kirk, that came from Qatar. That I got it from Qatar. And this governor from Utah was saying that I got it from Russia and China. But that's a different place as far as I can remember. Wow. So Elon Musk is no longer listed as, at least we're told, is not the richest man in the world. Now it's supposed to be Larry Ellison, who would get like $100 billion in a very short time. His stock went up really huge. Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle, or he's the chief executive officer of Oracle. And Musk has 385 billion. Ellison has 393 billion. Wow. Okay, let's see. Apparently Trump is dropping sanctions on Belavia here from Belarus. That's good news for us anyway. And he sent birthday greetings to Lukashenko, and I guess that was kind of a big deal. Looks like he really likes, either he likes Lukashenko, or he's trying to woo Lukashenko maybe to do something against Russia, which definitely won't work, because the Union State is really cemented a lot, and Lukashenko is no dummy. So he'll know that Lukashenko's no dummy. Let me just say that. You know, if Donald Trump is starting to ask him to do something that's not very favorable at all to Russia, Lukashenko's going to say, "Oh, that explains the cufflinks," with the White House cufflinks. And he sent some letter that it said, Donald Trump sent a letter to Lukashenko like, "Oh, express my belated birthday greetings and all that from Melania and myself." And he signed Donald. And the envoys that brought this, I can't even know the guy's name. Some guy you see in the news a lot and all that. It wasn't Kellogg, it was somebody else. Said that he only signs Donald when it's a mark of special friendship. Very, very few people get anything from him where it's signed Donald. It says Donald Trump normally. So they said it was reserved for special friends. That's what he said. Defense, this was the one I was going to tell you. Another idiot lady in the, you had them first. You had like Hillary Clinton, and you got some dummies. You got some real smart ones, but of course, definitely they're not going to let them in politics for some other reason, like Candace Owens or whatever. They're not going to let her in there. She's too smart. You got to get a bunch of some Hillary Clinton or some crazy lunatic types of women, I guess, in politics. I'm almost done, so somebody can take my thing. That guy's coming with a big smile here. Hope he's not gay. But anyway, so apparently, like I said, he dropped these sanctions. That's one thing. Maybe he's got a perpetual smile, that guy. No, what I was going to say is this woman, the defense, get that, defense minister. The ones, that have to do with the military, bombs and guns and planes and stuff like that. The defense minister of the Czech Republic, Jana Černochová, said on live TV that Russia is the one that unleashed World War II. Russia caused World War II with the assistance of Nazi Germany. God, isn't that incredible? So I don't know how they did that, because World War II started before Russia was involved in World War II, and it was unleashed against. The strange thing is that the first country, this just now occurs to me, the first country that was attacked by Germany was Czechoslovakia. And this is the Czech Republic's defense minister that says this. And it was just right on the heels of something really stupid, apparently, that Kaya Kallas said it. She might have said the same thing, that Russia's the one that started it. It's just like Russia is the one that dropped the bombs on Hiroshima. I mean, I think that's Ursula von der Leyen. I think she knows better, but they're trying to change history slowly as we watch. And I would tell you guys to keep your books, because, they can change anything online, And by the way, I just got a bookshelf. I'm going to show that to you guys. I mean, not too long from now, you're going to see my house inside of my house. And some people want to see that. And it'll be it's a nice bookshelf, so you'll be surprised. And we're getting close to it, because it was just brought and built into my apartment here some days ago. Just about 2 days ago. So let's keep going. Anyway. Remember Maya Sandow from Moldova? She also said that the Nazis were the liberators. They're the ones that liberated Europe. And really, this is some really incredible stuff. I mean, you get some people. I mean, are they really trying to tell us that they are complete, stupid, blithering idiots? Like 360-degree Baerbock. How? I don't like to talk like this, but how in God's name do they get these stupid women to have these high positions? It's like taking computer chips out of washing machines, like Ursula von der Leyen, who says she's a doctor. Well, I'm not. If she's some kind of, why doesn't she call herself Dr. Ursula von der Leyen? This is none of this stuff makes any sense. I'm really skeptical about everything I'm hearing nowadays has anything to do with the West. Just sorry about that, everybody. Wow, I'm gonna be an hour and a half on this video. Anyway, Russia did it. And Charlie Kirk, let me tell you about this. This is very important stuff. This is a very big close to this stuff about Charlie Kirk. I was watching this thing and I told you about it. Patrick Bet-David. And Charlie Kirk was on there, and he was saying that the stuff from October, this is going to really big time piss off Netanyahu. So he doesn't like Charlie Kirk. He does not like this, that Charlie Kirk said this. And you know that if Charlie Kirk said this to him, he would be spewing out spit and vinegar at Charlie Kirk. So saying that it's ridiculous that Israel would have anything to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, you know, that it's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. It strongly looks like Israel very, very possibly could have done this, because Charlie Kirk was in there, and he's not so pro-Israel. I was thinking he says he's pro-Israel, but his actions and his words tell you something completely different. It doesn't make any sense. He was saying that a lot of these people, on September 11th, he says it looks like Israel incinerated them. It's just like what Max Blumenthal told us. Max Blumenthal, and he might even be pro-Israel. A lot of these people might be pro-Israel. They might have some certain positive views, but they're not pro-Israeli government, not this government what's going on now, or maybe some of the preceding governments as well. These people are just filled with hatred, these people. And I don't think, it looks like Charlie Kirk is not a bad guy at all. He is not really pro-Israel, not in that way. He is just as much anti-Israel as the stuff I've been saying. It looks like he does not like any of this stuff. He doesn't like a bunch of children getting killed either. But he's talking about October 7th, and he said that anyway, you'd have to look at that. I'd have to see it again. It's almost worth making an entire video just on what he was saying. He said that doesn't fit the smell test, that there's some evil crap that happened on October 7th, and it was not Hamas that was doing it. He's alluding to the fact, and he's making it definitely clear that this is Israel doing this stuff, whatever happened on October 7th. So remember when I'm talking about that, Max Blumenthal, and they called this the Hannibal Directive, to kill Israelis. The Israelis were killing Israelis to make sure that they did not get into the hands of the Palestinians. And I bet I'm going to get suppressed. This video is going to be heavily, heavily suppressed. You know, maybe you guys can send it to your friends and stuff, because Israel's not going to, or Google. Is that the difference? Is there a difference between Google and Israel? But anyway, they're not going to want to send this cold call to anybody. If anybody out there sees me for the first time and watches this video, please write that in the comments. Unless you're a bot. Then you probably would be a bot. Maybe an Israel bot. I'll tell you what, this stuff is all getting really bad. This is some bad crap going on in the world. One nation controlled by the media, all across the alien nation. Anyway, that's it for this video. And a lot of stuff I put out here. This is some really shocking stuff. So Charlie Kirk, I don't know. This guy, I just watching him speak on Patrick Bet David, you know, I'm starting to say, well, this guy, he really is something. No wonder he could get thousands and thousands of people at a university. It must have been far more than the population of the university. I went to one of the biggest universities in the United States, and I don't think anybody could get so many people to turn up at any event by anybody at my university. And this was incredible. So I guess maybe he really is worth watching. But then why do you get all these haters? And who is the one that's putting these haters? Oh, they're trying to say that Russia is doing that? Yeah, right. I don't know. Because Russia wants to create hatred? I doubt that very much. Anyway, so thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.